the talk today, I'm the beginning. So there is an author, John Updike, and he was talking to a group of journalists, and someone asked him once, what is it? How do you write your novels? How do you know what to do? And his response was, you have to have the end in mind. When you're writing and you begin to write, you need to know what the end is first. And so I want to ask all of us, what is the end in mind for us with public education or education in general? When we think about that, it reminds me of a gentleman you may know. He's a well-known speaker, Simon Sinek. And Simon talks about the why of any organization. And why you do something is more important than how and what you do. The why, because he says, the why is about what you believe. And if we want to get a job done, if we're hiring people to simply do a job, they'll work for our money. But if they come along and believe in our why and believe in what we believe in, our folks will give their blood, sweat, and tears. And that's everybody from our students to our staff to the whole entire community. So we need to think about our whys. Why is it what you do, not just what you do? That's easily defined. But why is it we do what we do? And what is it that we believe? If this is the ultimate goal, and I'm just going to share, I pulled Anchorage School District's mission. And our mission is a good one. And we want success in life for our students. It's important. We measure that, lots of different measurements. We have graduation rates, reading rates, this and that. We're judged on those things, but that just happens. What we want and what we believe is success in life. Okay, anybody we have a small room here. Anybody want to shout out what they believe success in life looks like? Justin. Self-sustainability, awesome. Feeling of purpose, great. Personal growth. Hope, nice. Financial independence. Yes, indeed. Check that one off. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what we've stated together is success in life. It's our well-being. Well-being has been studied and defined, and it is about a hope for a future. It is actually a research and turned into a book. It's called Well-Being. I forgot the author now. But it is about hope for your future. It is about work, being able to sustain yourself, having happy, healthy families. It's all of those things. Something that ties that together, something that drives people innately is work, is being able to work for others. And it could be in a job where you're earning money, or it can be in philanthropy. But we are driven to work, and work is part of that success. Whether we talk about the places where we are, about work now and working in school and doing well, whether it's for a music program, a sports team, or in a reading class. We're driven to work. It brings us joy. When we talk about what is success when they leave us as educators, we talk about employment. That's exactly right. People go to school, believe it or not, to get a good job. That's what research shares. The Gallup did some research on college graduates and their parents and business. And over 94% of the respondents say, why do you go to college? Why do you go to school? To get a good job. So employment actually matters. I had a picture. So here's a kindergartner class that we just took this week. Kindergarten started. Think about what success in their lives might be if a hope for their future is work. Do we know what that looks like? I want to tell you, today, we don't know what it looks like for our seniors, let alone kids who are going to graduate in 2031. Employment matters. And when we don't get kids on the right path in our system, whether it's K-12 university or afterwards, there's a permanent detour in their lives. And there's some research out there on how much that means. It's done by Strata. They're a big data sourcing company, and I took a lot of this information from them. So out of their study included 4 million resumes, independent resumes, of students who graduated our university system. 43% of them are underemployed when they leave. The idea is that, of course, we want lifelong learners. We need students who know how to learn, but we also need students who know how to do. They have to do something to get their first job. And interestingly enough, of those 43%, 5 years out, they're 5 times less likely to have a job in the degree that they earned. 10 years out, 75% of them will never be in the sector for which they have the degree. Underemployment is a lifetime problem, and we're the educators educating kids for the well-being, for the hope for the future, for a job, self-sustainability. And we don't even know what work they're going to do. You see the quandary we're in. So with that, for success in life, I want to say, education system in Alaska, whether it's pre-K through university, post-secondary, we have a job to do. And I'm going to share some ideas about that, as well as our other guests today. Theodore Levitt is a great marketing professor, and he talks about people don't want a drill, really. They don't want to hire a drill. They don't need a drill. They don't want to buy a drill. We have our woodworking person in here. Mike, what? They want a 1/4-inch hole. So they get a drill to get a hole. So what is it? Again, if we're hiring a drill to get a hole, what has our community hired us to do in public education, and are we doing it? What is the end result? We shared your ideas on success in life, and they're absolutely correct. We knew what they were before we knew what research says they are and what empirical research shares. So think about, we used to hire newspapers. We used to get newspapers delivered. And the proposition there was a newspaper could give us the most up-to-date information. It told us, what are some other things you would go to the newspaper before big data, cell phones, things like that. Classified, and what could you find in the classified? Jobs, what else? What was it? Puppies, animals, yes. We could find homes, real estate. We could find dates. There still was those ads there as well. You could find a date, as well as just local news and national news. There have been companies swooping in, focusing on the value that a newspaper used to bring and doing it better and faster. So where do we go to now for real estate? Zillow. Dating. Farmers, okay, there you go. Absolutely, farmers.com, others find, there's lots out there, so it'll meet individual needs. We can go to CNN, we can go to Fox, we can even choose the kind of news that we want. So when we used to have a newspaper, we don't have it anymore. We have to understand, what is it that we're being hired for in a public education? And I don't mean just the traditional model of hiring, but what is it that our community, Alaska, expects us to do? Brings us back to the research about learning to know. We need to know. There are fundamental skills we need to know. But more importantly, our students need to be able to do something. So here is just a mishmash of companies that have startups that provide information to students, have them study something, single value proposition, to move forward. And they're cropping up all over. This is our competition, because they see that students, they want to get an education to be able to do something. And this is a quicker, straighter path. So when we think about public education, and in my sector, the K-12, we do everything the same. It's about comprehensive high schools and everybody being the same, and we got to get out of that. We got to say, where do kids want to go, and how do we help them get there? And it's going to look different for our different kids. 70% of students in universities are non-traditional nowadays. So whether it's they have families, their age is older than the typical 18-year-old, or they have jobs. 70%, Gallup provided that information, 70% college-going people are non-traditional now. It's not just, let me go to college and live the life. It's let me go to college so I can get a job. But companies are cropping up all over that are getting it done faster. They are being hired to deliver that success in life. What lies ahead? How many of you have kids in college right now? I do. All right, so Deloitte, depending on what age they are, in 2 years from now, 50% of what they're learning is going to be obsolete. It's from some research. So how much are you paying? Yeah. Think about that return on your investment. The bottom one, 62 million full-time equivalents positions can be automated today, but they're not, but they can be. What does our future look like? And how are we responsible to the people of Alaska to deliver what they want for their students? Really term it in exponential futures. They have determined that a person is already born today who will live to be 150 years old. So how many of you, if you think your work life, how many of you want to work till you're 100? What does that look like? Does it look like that? It's beyond our imagination. It's beyond what we believe we know today. It's exponential. The growth, we can't even determine it. What does that look like? Some examples of exponential growth. Since my husband's in the telco business, I found some data on that. 76% of our households worldwide have a cell phone. And it took 76 years in the United States to get a landline to only 50% of the homes. It took 10 years to get 76% of the worldwide population a cell phone. That's fast. In 2001, it was $96 million to sequence the human genome. In 2013, it went down to a whopping $6,000. Last night, on 23andMe, I could do a swab, and for $150, I can find out my human genome. That's exponential growth. 2001 to 2018, $96 million to 150. That's exponential. So do we even know? Well, we don't know. And I'm a math teacher, so I just wanted to share with you a linear trend as well as an exponential line. That's our algebra for us today. The slope of the line is definitely changing. So can we extrapolate what we know today for the future? And I would say, and we all have said it before, we can't do what we do today the same way for the future. And I want to let you know, a colleague of mine told me that shared some research, and I just like reading research. I'm literally, I didn't do an introduction myself, which I totally forgot. That's what I was supposed to do, but I was nervous, and I'm a nerd, so I love this stuff. But he shared with me that when you study different sectors, and you chose the education track for a reason. Maybe you like it, you have kids in the system, you're part of it. But as far as change, the sector in our society that hates change the most are educators. That's least valued for us. Guess what the highest value is? It's security. Educators value security over change. Guess what? We're in a little bit of a trouble. We're going to be really uneasy and anxious for the rest of our lives because change is here. So how can we think about the future in moving forward? So I want to share, this is of course research again, that all of us have this little almond-shaped thing in our brain called the amygdala. And we all have it and we've all experienced it. And your amygdala fires up and has us do crazy things. So when you're driving and somebody cuts you off and you get angry, it puts the little hairs on the back of your head up, that's your amygdala firing, going, ugh. When this happens to me, when I'm at the like a line where you have one common line and then everybody waits to the next teller open and somebody just walks up to the teller, and I was like, come on, my amygdala's firing. I mean, I know that's silly, but we all have things that bug us, and that's your amygdala. And your amygdala fires what's called your fight or flight. And when you get upset like this, it's like a tiger in the woods. Your amygdala will fire, and it's hard for you to think because it's a fight or flight, similar to our past about being fearful of nature around us. And when that amygdala fires, what happens is your, go to the next slide, your prefrontal cortex, which is a place in your brain that makes decisions and thinks things through, it doesn't allow it to do that. So it's hard for us to just take a step back and go, you know what, that's really not that big of a deal. This whole change thing really isn't that big of a deal. Let's just, orient ourselves to the future, and we'll be just fine if we just move along. Well, guess what? Your prefrontal cortex is not working well because your amygdala just fired. And so we see change, and we want to squash it because it's a tiger in the woods. That's what happens. That's what happens in my world, and it happens in all of our worlds. And when that happens, the medial prefrontal cortex can't do its job. And this part of your brain acts like a dimmer, and it just dims things down. And these are all survival mechanisms from the moment the human genome started, right? So it dims, and this part of our brain affects our empathy and our understanding. And it's the reason that we struggle with change, we can't see ourselves in that position. It dims it down. It doesn't let us see doom and gloom 10 years out. That's why we overeat. We know that overeating will cause diabetes. We do that. We smoke because we don't even see ourselves as that person 10 years ago. It's like a stranger. It's a survival mechanism. So it's difficult for us to move through this change that we already know is happening, that we already know our kids will face as well, and we're the folks in their charge. So how do we work through this? We think bigger. And we're going to share some ideas today to think bigger. I love this quote. Any useful statement about the future should at first seem ridiculous. It was ridiculous, and I heard someone share this, that if I would have told you 8 years ago that, I have to fly down to Texas, I'm going to get on my phone, call a stranger, they're going to come pick me up, and I'm going to get off at the airport, and I'm not going to pay, you would think that would be ridiculous. But what is that? Uber or Lyft, that's what happens. So think about these companies. Are they ridiculous? Uber is the largest taxi company, owns no cars. Facebook creates no original content. Alibaba has no inventory, and Airbnb has no real estate. Yet those are the leading companies in their sectors. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous to me, and Anand Verapalli shared this at a speech that he made once, is the puppies and muffins. And I relate this to me, like, it's ridiculous to me that I'm sitting down at a computer and the computer, by this, is asking me if I'm human or a computer. I'm like, it's my computer. I'm sitting down to it. My computer's asking me if I'm a computer or a human. And they do it with puppies and muffins and pick out the traffic light, pick out the cars, so that we're human. But artificial intelligence can now pick out puppies and muffins. This is something that when I was doing this research for a speech I did before, I thought about, I signed up for CLEAR. Does anybody know what CLEAR is? It's at the airport. So this is the DC airport. And to miss everything on my right, your left, I signed up for CLEAR. And I just thought to myself, to get in front of a line and to get on a plane faster, I just gave my biometrics to a company. So CLEAR takes your retina scan and your fingerprint, and it's even faster than TSA. But in hindsight, I'm like, we just put, and I signed my husband up too, so he could go with me. We just put our information in a computer system of our retinas. Think about that. Think about that. Would that have happened? In the past, it was only in the Jetsons or in the Star Trek and things like that. So that is ridiculous to me, if I have to say personally. A computer asking me if I'm a human and giving my biometrics to get on a plane, that's crazy. That's our world. I want to challenge us to think about, this may look like chaos, we may never want to drive in that, but that is exactly what our school system should look like. We need to have on and off ramps for our students, whether they are 5 or 50, to get where they need to go for their success in life. It should look like this. It's okay to look like this. We don't only have one highway to success. Keeping a broader mind and a growth mindset, this is what we're challenged to do. Believe that you can learn anything. Develop the skill sets needed. Have fundamental skills. And ensure you remain relevant. And our education system, if we can focus on some of these, we'll get our kids to success in life. And we had to begin, and now we just need to start starting. Thank you.